The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Hello Baggies fans and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, available here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Of course, plenty to discuss in this week's episode. We got a special guest coming from the Burnley side of things. We got Lewis from the Claret Kid YouTube channel to talk to us about his thoughts on yesterday's game. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on yesterday's game. Also, we've got a Brighton preview coming up, and of course we're going to be hearing your thoughts from the game against Burnley. Obviously, plenty to discuss in that one. VAR playing a big part. But of course, before we get into that, make sure you're subscribing to the podcast, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you're doing, wherever you're listening from, wherever you're watching. If you're watching me right now, there's a special subscribe button on YouTube that you can press. But if not, there's plenty of other places that you can subscribe to the Baggies Podcast. Apple Podcasts has a feature where you can follow us. So does Spotify. So if you want to keep up with the podcast, keep it coming, flooding into wherever you're listening to your podcast from, make sure you're clicking that button, because it's all the more important that you do that to make sure you get it every single week without fail. However, this week is going to be an interesting episode. We've got plenty to discuss. If you want to go and follow me on Twitter, it's at the Baggies Pod and at @LouisBent_. Links are in the description. If you want to watch some of the videos that I've been putting on the channel, there's been one about Diagna in the past week, about analysing his performance. So if you want to watch that, there's a video on the channel about that. But there's plenty more to discuss this week. But make sure you're staying tuned over the Twitter pages, because there might be some exciting news regarding the Baggies Podcast coming very soon. However, without further ado, let's get straight into this week's episode of the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 33 already. Goodness me, time flies. Let's get straight into it. Before we start talking about looking ahead to future matches, we must have a look at the Burnley game. A game in which we were actually the better side. However, much like last week against Manchester United, there were no points to really show for it. Unfortunately, a 0-0 draw at Burnley. I mean, is that the second 0-0 draw we've had against Burnley this season? I've got a feeling that it is. Yes, second 0-0 draw. I mean, yeah, we deserve so much more from the game, and it's pretty painful to have to watch. It was watching both sides try and create opportunities. Honestly, it was like pulling teeth. It was really hard to watch the two teams try and create quality opportunities, because they're just, both teams just lacking a bit of quality in this game. However, there's plenty to discuss about this game. We're going to go through the lineup for West Brom and how we sort of lined up, and go through each player, how they played, and sort of the flashpoints in the game. Starting off with Sam Johnston in the goal. I felt he didn't have too much to do, but whenever called upon, a couple of little saves, coming in, claiming the ball in the box as well was quite a big one, which was quite good from him. But yes, so not really much to write home about. Burnley didn't have that many chances in the game. They didn't particularly create opportunities. I think the best one they probably had was one with Jay Rodriguez in the first half, where it just sort of skimmed off his head, but didn't get proper connection. But if he had, it had gone in. However, not too many opportunities for Burnley, but quite a few for us. Connor Townsend played left back. I think him and Furlong perhaps lacked a bit of perhaps a bit of causing problems going forward, and maybe that's the job they've been asked to do. But I can't really tell. But with Townsend, I think there was a few scuffed clearances, and he also, we'll talk about him in a second, but a bit more. But yeah, just an average game from really Townsend, and probably Furlong as well. Furlong had a chance in the first half where he bent a left-footed shot towards the goal, which perhaps could have gone in on on another day. Maybe he should have taken it first time on his right foot to drive it, but no. Carl Bartley, really strong in the air. I thought he was quite fortunate not to have given away a penalty. I thought for all the life of me that they were going to give away a penalty for handball. Bartley sort of went out like this and stuck his arms out and tried to chest the ball, but it got caught and sort of underneath his arm. I think we were quite lucky not to give away a penalty there, to be quite honest. But yes, Bartley otherwise winning lots of duels in the match, the most duels in the match actually with 10. So I thought he worked considerably hard, and I thought he kept the back line together after Semi Ajayi got himself sent off in that first half for handballing and denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity, according to the rulebook, VAR rulebook, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely a handball. No question about it. No, definitely handball. He's definitely the last man. No question about it. I do agree that it's a red card. I think, I knew for all the world it was going to be a red card as soon as they marched over to that VAR board. But I just have to query the sort of definition. I mean, by definition, that's a red card. He's the last man, and by that definition, he's denied a clear goal scoring opportunity. I just have to say I'm unsure how that is a clear goal scoring opportunity. He's about 50 yards from goal. I mean, who knows whether he would have actually scored? I suppose by the letter of the law, it's correct, and I do agree with it being a red card. It's just, is that really a clear goal scoring opportunity? I'm not really sure, to be honest, anymore. I just don't think that Vidra would have scored from there. I think somebody surely would have caught him up, perhaps even Semi Ajayi himself. I'd have backed actually Ajayi if he'd have just carried on moving. If he'd have just carried on moving and perhaps let that ball run, he would have perhaps just managed to beat him in a foot race, really. I feel like if Ajayi had let that go past him, he might have caught up with Vidra quite easily. However, I do have to say he's the last man, and by letter of the law, that he's got clear goal scoring opportunity, apparently. But I do have to say that it perhaps, I just can't see 50 yards from goal how Vidra's going to remain unchallenged. That's my only query. I do agree handball and do agree red card. I just, the letter of the law, really, it is a red card, but I'm just not sure how they've defined that, really. However, I don't think it's particularly Semi Ajayi's fault. He had to do something. That was what he chose to do, handball it. However, Connor Townsend and Conor Gallagher choosing to keep the ball in, Townsend in particular, when it would be our throw-in after the ball comes out from like a set piece, and Townsend decides to pass it back to Ajayi and put him in all sorts of bother. Whilst there's two Burnley players swarming onto him, one of them being Vidra, who pokes it round Ajayi, and Ajayi obviously does that little table tennis shot. I just have to fault really Townsend for keeping the ball in. I don't really understand what he was trying to do. I understand he's trying to recycle the attack, but why are you bothering with that? Gallagher as well involved in that, I think, as well. I'm not sure who played the pass in the end, but I think Townsend kept it in, and then Gallagher must have played the pass. But yeah, I do have to query the fact that they've tried to keep that ball in play when there's really not much need to be quite honest. Furlong, as I said, he had that chance later on. I feel like Ajayi, that's a one-match ban, so it's not too bad, but I just think it could have been prevented by doing something different. In terms of Jokoslu, I think he was the best player on the pitch for me today, by far. I think he was absolutely fantastic. I think we've got ourselves a real player, just battling. You saw him go for 3 tackles in a row, just chopping it into those tackles, and I think he's just got everything that we hope for in a midfielder. I think we've been crying out for him. I don't know where he was at the start of the season. I mean, he's been making appearances for Celta Vigo, to be honest, this season. He's made 12 appearances so far. I just feel like he should have been brought in at the start of the season. I'm not sure why that didn't happen. Who thought we could go into a season with Livermore and Sawyers in the midfield? I don't know. But Jokoslu, really, really fantastic. Let me just read you out some of the numbers from his side of things. Completed the most dribbles in the match with 2. Was the most foul player in the match with 4 times, and won the most duels alongside Bartley with 10. He was just absolutely phenomenal. Just breaking up play, passing it off, even quite forcing the creative section when we really, needed somebody to step forward. He was actually bringing the ball forward, not just passing back and across once he won the ball. So I do have to say Jokoslu, really good. My man of the match. We'll see who your man of the match is hopefully later on. But yeah, Jokoslu for me, definitely the man of the moment for me, to be honest. I think that if we can try and get him on a permanent deal, even if we're in the Championship, I think that he's going to be a phenomenal footballer. And I'd really hope he wants to stay, because I really hope that he does, because he's a fantastic player and he's done a really, really good job in his first few games. And I hope he can continue, because we've been crying out for this defensive midfielder to screen the back four, and here one is, and I hope we don't let him slip from our grasp. Matt Phillips, not really much to say about him. Played about half an hour until he had to come off after Semi Ajayi got sent off. Came off for O'Shea. Maitland-Niles, I thought he was alright, to be honest. I thought he tried to bring the ball forward and tried to create things. He played a really nice pass to Diagne when Ben Mee was coming out, and he played it just the right time to pass it into Diagne, who squared it to Pereira, who missed a sitter. But yes, I thought Maitland-Niles provided a good bit of energy. I think he's quite composed as well on the ball. I think sometimes he does look a little lost in this midfield. I think he's not used to not having the ball for this long, or not having quality possession and players around him, I think. But I thought Maitland-Niles did a decent job against Burnley. I think he didn't look particularly great against Manchester United, but I thought in the Burnley game, I think he's improved a bit. Gallagher, just ratty, nasty player to play against. He's just hounding and hounding. The guy never stops running. I hate to play against him. Honestly, he'd be all over you. He's all over the players like a rash. Won the most tackles in the game, most foul player in the match alongside Jokaslu with 4. Also won the joint most duels in the match alongside Bartley and Jokaslu. Pereira, as I said, missed a sitter. I thought he was quite good creatively, trying to drive us forward, but when he's sort of the only one trying to do that, I think it's quite hard. We had so many chances in this game. I understand Pereira chances. Diagne had a chance where I didn't expect him to have that opportunity to bring the ball inside and shoot. But in terms of the way we played, I thought we did ourselves proud. I thought with 10 men, we had an extraordinary game. I just thought we worked really hard to keep Burnley at bay, and I thought Burnley looked pretty average. I'm sure Lewis will be able to provide a bit more analysis from a Burnley perspective as to how shocking they were. But in terms of how I saw it, I thought Burnley looked pretty all over the shop, to be honest. Didn't really create anything and didn't really look that great defensively. Looked, to be cut apart at times. They're quite lucky that we didn't run away with all 3 points due to our lack of finishing ability. Diagne, I just feel bad for him. He's just crying out for another goal. I feel like just needed a goal in that game, and he was unable to provide one. I thought we tried really hard to score, but I think it looked like we were trying not to score at times, to be honest. We're working hard to try and create those opportunities, but we're just unable to do it. I thought we had plenty of chances to win the game, but unfortunately we just didn't in the end. I'm pretty disappointed with the way that we conducted our chances. I think we should have put things to the sword a bit easier than that. I thought we should have just put things to bed a bit easier. But apart from that, I thought we were all right. I thought we worked hard. We outworked Burnley for most of the game. I do have to say this is probably the final time that I've managed to one of the only times I managed to say this season that we've won the midfield battle. I think Jokaslu, Maitland-Niles and Gallagher dominated the pairing of Cork and Westwood. I thought they were the better pairing. I just can't believe we didn't do anything in the game. I just feel like could have gone for it a bit more. I do have to say that we could have. The game was so open going forward, so much space, so many gaps between both teams. I think if we'd have put on somebody, I feel once we went down to 10 men, I thought that was almost guaranteed that somebody like Dean Garner wasn't going to get on the pitch. I just feel like he needs to get back into his confidence. I thought it would have been a good game for him, to be honest. I thought it would have been a good shout to have him on the pitch, but that's just the way it is. He doesn't provide much defensively, and that's probably the reason why Allardyce didn't decide to put him on the pitch. In terms of substitutes, I thought we should have brought on somebody like Robinson or Dean Garner or Grant just to provide a bit of fresh legs. We were clearly running out of steam and we were getting loads of spaces, and there were tired passes from people like Pereira, pretty poor passes because the people are tired. But yeah, in terms of the game, I thought we deserved to win. Sam Allardyce said in his press conference that he's never seen such a team play like this with 10 men and dominate the game. I just can't believe we didn't run away with 3 points, and we'll regret that. We really will. Saw Fulham win last night, which takes them within 3 points with Newcastle to play today. Takes us 11 points away. I mean, you just need to pick a win up against Brighton. Need to pick these wins up against teams we should be beating and teams that we've had opportunities to beat. Burnley will be safe. I think it's Newcastle and Brighton you need to try and suck in. Anybody you fancy a little trip to the Championship, we need to try and suck in as quickly as possible. But yeah. Burnley seemed like they had 10 men on the pitch and they were playing for a draw, but I just can't believe we didn't pick up a win with the opportunities we had. It's just such a frustrating game from a striking perspective for West Brom. Before we start to preview the Brighton game, however, we've got a special guest coming on the podcast. Lewis from the Claret Kid Burnley page and YouTube channel has come on the podcast to talk about his thoughts of the game and what he thought of the game. I went on his YouTube channel for a match preview for the Burnley game, so it's fantastic to have Lewis on for this. He sent us a video talking about his thoughts from a Burnley perspective and how he thought the game went. If you fancy subscribing to Lewis's YouTube channel, there is a link in the description. If you fancy following him on Twitter, there's also one for that as well. So hopefully you'll go and show him some support, because his insights into the game were very good from a Burnley perspective. But here's Lewis's thoughts.
Hello everyone, my name is Lewis Porter. I run a Burnley fan channel. It's just called Lewis Porter if you want to check me out. But thank you to Louis for inviting me on the show. I really appreciate it on the Baggies Podcast, of course. Just going to run through a few things really from a Burnley perspective, because obviously Louis is doing a great job of doing the West Brom's perspective, but from a Burnley point of view, just going to run through a few things. So, as a Burnley fan, I think it was incredibly disappointing that game. Obviously, West Brom got a relatively early red card, which obviously I think everyone agrees was a red card. But from that, I expected us to pick up a bit, push forward and try and go for the goal really, create more chances because obviously with a man down you expect to be able to move more freely. But it was quite the opposite actually. I think West Brom really pulled together after that red card and really threw everything at us. And we just dealt with it very poorly, in my opinion. Obviously, West Brom did fail to score, which was incredible. I don't know how that happened, but I just feel like overall we was so poor. We should realistically be winning a game like that when obviously you have a man down. But we've performed so poorly there, and it was quite frustrating to watch really. But obviously I have to applaud West Brom because they just kept throwing everything at us. We had to make a goal line clearance, shoot at the crossbar as well. This was all with a red card as well, so it was very impressive. And hats off to that, honestly. But yeah, I think in terms of who I think performed well in the game for West Brom, I thought Gallagher was really good. I've noticed him a lot recently. He's been very good for the Baggies, of course. And of course, Pereira was incredibly good in that game. I thought he created a lot of chances, had a lot of shots on goals, some a bit wayward, of course, but I mean, he was taking the shots, and of course, he also got the goal line clearance. Well, it was Tarky that had to clear the lines from Pereira's shot. So, I mean, overall, I think for me, probably West Brom's best player in that game, I would say Pereira. I don't think the defence really had much to do. We just passed the ball out of play constantly. But I think Gallagher and Pereira are the standout players for West Brom, in my opinion. And I think they're the usual suspects as well. I think they're very good for the Baggies, and I think all Baggies fans will know that as well. As for Burnley, the best Burnley player, I think they're all pretty terrible, to be honest. But if I had to pick one Burnley player that was the best one, I think I'd go for Pope, just because he had to do the most, really, make the most saves in that. I feel like he was probably our best player. I don't think anyone was very good, to be honest. But we'll go for Pope as my man of the match for Burnley there. But overall, man of the match of the whole game will be Pereira, in my opinion. Unlucky not to score, like I said. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to see if West Brom do end up going down, because I think they played some good football against us. Obviously, there's quite a big gap in terms of points, but if they keep playing like that and they actually do manage to score, because they were unlucky not to score in that game, if they manage to start scoring goals, then it'll be interesting to see if they can stay up. I mean, they stand a good chance if they play like that. I don't think they've been playing particularly bad under Sam Allardyce recently, really, but they're just struggling to get results, it seems. And like I said, as for Burnley, just a shocking performance, really. I don't think I've ever seen us play that bad, but I don't want to take anything away from West Brom, because I think West Brom played very well. But yeah, overall, that's what I think about the game. I mean, just a very lacklustre game. Nothing really happened too insane. One thing I do wonder about though is if Bartley's handball shout for the pen. I personally feel that was handball. I don't know what West Brom fans think, but I personally do feel like that was handball. Maybe I'm missing something there, but I don't know. But yeah, West Brom definitely deserved to win, and they were unlucky not to get the win. So overall, that's what I think about the game, and I'll pass you back over to Louis.
So a big thank you to Lewis for providing that sort of insight from a Burnley perspective. Pleasure having him on the podcast. If you want to go and subscribe, follow him on Twitter. There'll be some links in the description regarding that. Now time to move on to the Brighton game. Looking ahead to a different game. Hopefully we can pick up a victory in any of these coming games. Brighton is going to be a difficult one. We need 3 points. The game's really starting to ebb away. It's becoming increasingly difficult task to survive, especially when you're throwing away games like that. They play Crystal Palace tomorrow, today when you're listening to this. So it's obviously going to be very interesting to see how they get on against Palace. Hopefully they can have some tired legs. Hopefully a few injuries for Brighton, and hopefully we can go out and put in a good performance and beat them. Hopefully, because I can't explain how much we need a win and how much we were close to one. In terms of our lineup next week, I think we're going to go for a pretty similar look. I'm hoping that Snodgrass is going to be back, and he'd obviously fit in on the left or right-hand side, whichever side that Sam decides to play him on. My lineup would be Johnston, Bartley, O'Shea. I suppose there's nobody else who could play centre-back apart from O'Shea and Ivanovic, and I wouldn't bother playing Ivanovic. Bartley, Furlong, Townsend, Maitland-Niles, Yokoslu, Gallagher, Pereira, Snodgrass and Diagna. I just hope Snodgrass is back because we missed his grit and determination, I think, in this. Well, not merely missed it, but, we could do with some more. We really started to do well with that, so I'm hoping that we could potentially get some more grit and determination from Snodgrass. I think I'd like to see him on set pieces. I think Pereira's set piece delivery hasn't been particularly outstanding, and I don't think he's really had an opportunity to go and get those particular opportunities to take those set pieces. I feel like Pereira's set pieces sometimes don't cause the danger that they should, whereas I'd like to see Snodgrass just have a go. Maybe just one side Pereira, one side Snodgrass. I think that would potentially work a bit better than things have before. But yeah, I'd hope to see that, and I hope that we can work things out with regards to scoring our opportunities, making the most. We need 3 points from Brighton. The games are really ebbing away now. I think it's 14 games left of the season, and I think we're desperate for some points. To be honest, I think we need a win. Just to start us off, and then we can really start to build. I just think the win, unless one win comes, no others will. To be honest, in terms of fixtures coming up, we've got Brighton, Everton, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Southampton, Leicester, Villa, Wolves, Arsenal, Liverpool, West Ham, Leeds. That's till the end of the season. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 apparently. I must have miscounted that because I think there's 14. But yeah, no, there's 13. There's 13 games left of the season, so the games are ebbing away and wins are needed. Just need one win and it'll set us on our way. I think we just need to get on with it really. Converting chances is just becoming an issue now because we were really defensively solid, I do have to say. Burnley didn't really put us to much trouble, but I feel like the defence stood a bit firmer than normal, to be honest. But yeah, we need a bit more. We need a bit more, to be honest. Need a bit more flair, a bit more fight in our team. Not fight, but fight to get that ball in the back of the net. I think we tried really hard yesterday, and I'm really pleased with what we did. But this game against Brighton is a big one. They're going to look to try and escape the relegation zone because us and Fulham are going to be the ones providing a bit of a challenge. I can't see Sheffield doing it, but maybe we will. Fulham only 3 points away and 4 points away from Brighton as it stands. So yeah, I'm just hoping that we can go and bring a bit more goal scoring threat. I'm hoping that we can finish off our chances. Hoping that we can create some overloads and hoping that we can just put Brighton to the sword like we should have done last time we played them. Really, we had the chances to beat them, we had the opportunities to win, and unfortunately we didn't. So yeah, we need to go out there and put in a better shift. To be honest, really hoping that we can put in a better performance and win the game and make up for those lost chances against Burnley. In terms of your thoughts this week, you guys seem to really enjoy Yokoslu's performance yesterday. I think a lot of you were big fans of what he had. Yokoslu sitting in. This is one of the comments that have been coming through on my Twitter feed with Yokoslu sitting in front of the centre backs. It provides us with plenty of cover against the counter attack. That's a good point really. To be honest, we need to do that. We need to keep Yokoslu in front of that defence. It allows us to get forward. And Yokoslu did get his fair point of getting these getting these opportunities and these marauding runs forward because it allowed players to move around him and start to cause problems. But yeah, I thought that having Yokoslu in front of that back four, we really started to we've really started to progress as a team. And I think if we can keep him next season, I think we'll come back up ASAP. In terms of other tweets, David Marshall has tweeted in and he said, at the Baggies Pod, Mike Dean, maybe we should have signed him, but certainly provides a big presence, an overbearing one even. Yeah, it's just typical Mike Dean. You knew we were going to, on another day, perhaps our player wouldn't have got sent off, but with Mike Dean, I just knew it was going to be a red card. I agree it's a red card, but I just feel like, maybe on another day a referee might have stuck with their decision and not given it. But that is the way that Mike Dean rolls, and that is the way that the game rolled. We have lost Semi Ajayi for the Brighton game. Hopefully we can see him back in Albion colours very soon. Hopefully no more of this silly titting about trying to keep the ball in when you should be just letting it go out of play, really. However, that brings us to the end of the Baggies podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here for a slightly shorter episode. Hopefully we've got some very exciting news coming on the Baggies podcast very soon, and I'll be, of course, informing you on that via Twitter. So if you're not following on Twitter, go and do it. Go on, get out of here and do it. Go and follow on Twitter at the Baggies Pod or at @LouisBent_. You can go and check that out, and you can go and keep up with all the latest news. You can even turn my tweet notifications on if you just can't wait a second to hear what I've got to say. But yes, that's definitely something you should do. Follow the podcast, give it a like, whatever you're doing on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, do it, and we can move forward as a podcast, and hopefully that we've got plenty of exciting news coming on very, very soon, and I look forward to bringing you that. However, that brings us to the end of this week's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Big thank you to Lewis for sharing his thoughts about the Burnley game. If you want to go and check out his links are in the description. That brings us to the end of the Baggies podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, guys. See you later. The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.